All right, hey, it is a cold Wednesday morning, but it's hot on the basketball court. Rob Brown, Brendan Martin,
Not cold in Florida. Not cold in Florida.
I know. Well, it's cold in the Panhandle. I know that, and it's
that's not Florida, bro. That's not Florida. I know you think it's Florida. We don't
Mm-hmm.
really hang out with those guys. Okay, that's
It's
all
LA.
up there in the boot. That's not. That's LA to you. That's
It's
the
LA.
redneck Riviera, bro. We don't go there. We hang down where it's warm. It's cold up there. That's all the upper 47.
It is, man.
Back
Look,
40. It's back 40.
Brendan, a lot to cover today. Look, last night, LSU now, Coach Brady's excited. 2 wins in a row. That's South Carolina. We're going to talk about those close losses they've had. Last night, that's the worst they've lost in a while. Coach John Brady, Oakley McFerrin, the Intern, Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net, Vince Ferrara, the sports animal in Knoxville. Take a picture of the QR code with your phone. Subscribe on YouTube, on X, Facebook, simultaneously streaming on 7 channels every morning, 8 a.m. Central, Monday through Friday. Brendan, where do you start? SEC right now, 3 projected 1 seeds. Gators, Tigers at Auburn, the Tide at Alabama. A&M was on that edge. They went down hard last night at the hump in Starkville. Life in the SEC, it's tough, man. It's like life on the Serengeti.
We'll like get life in the SEC in football, my friend. They eat their young. It's just transferring over. It's like talking football season all over again in basketball season.
It is. I think it's getting that exciting. The Saturdays, the Tuesdays, the Wednesdays. It's awesome. Let's bring in Final Four coach John Brady and the intern Oakley McFerrin from the Plains. Coach, by the way, I watched Arkansas State the other night against Troy, and I know you're a basketball junkie, but that's a damn good game there in Jonesboro. Troy beat them, but I think Arkansas State's got 19 wins. There's good basketball all over the country, and I told Oakley part of his homework for this week, come up with your top 5 players in the SEC, and I want to first start off by saying to you, thank you for joining us this morning, as to you, Oakley, and everybody watching. Coach, it's a great basketball season. It's rolling right now. Talk about what happened last night in Baton Rouge, because if you ever complain about a win, that's like complaining about being alive.
Well, I told Matt McMahon that last night. He was talking about we could have done this better and this. And I said, look, man, don't ever apologize for winning, particularly where this LSU team's been. Go to Oklahoma in the last 20 seconds of the game. We outscore them 8-0 to win the game. We gave away the Ole Miss game here at home. They outscored us 13-0 in the last 3 minutes and beat us here in Baton Rouge. And then we go on the road, and I thought we were going to lose the game, and we go on an 8-0 run in 20 seconds. That's incredible. We got one back, and then now, last night was a good, solid win for us. I didn't really think South Carolina played well. I didn't think they really wanted to be in Baton Rouge last night, but we were able to get a good win, and Cam Carter has really carried us. And our wins in the SEC, Cam Carter has had 3 really good games, and he had one last night to get our 3rd win. So it was good to win it because we got the Gators coming in here Saturday, and that's no walk in the park, as you guys know.
No, 5 tall guys.
I would not like to play Florida right now, Coach.
No.
At all. And I'm not saying that because I'm a big Gator. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Dang, they look real good. Are they peaking right now, Coach? Is Todd Golden got him just going the right direction?
Shoot, I've been a Florida fan all year. I think they've been peaking all year. They probably lost one game I thought they should have won, but other than that, I think Florida has a chance to go really deep in the tournament. They could possibly get, depending on the draw, they could possibly get to the Final Four. I mean, they got excellent guard play. They got good size around the goal. They can play fast. They can play slow because they have excellent guard play. And Todd Golden's one of the best young coaches in the country. So they've got the whole package. If they just stay out of foul trouble and no injuries pop up here in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I really like this Florida team. I've liked them all year long.
I have too, and they also I'm not scared, but they concern you. 5 now with Micah Handglotten. Oakley, you saw Handglotten come back, take off his red shirt for the good of the team. When you got to buy in like that, Oakley, you got to as a freshman in college, the intern. How much do you think that means to the rest of that team?
I mean, if your team's not bought in, you're not going to see success. That's why all the great coaches, their players buy into them and what they're selling. And we're still forgetting Florida's without. We haven't seen him and Alex Condon together, so that'll be coming up in about a week or two. And we'll really see how good Florida is
if he's healthy. But well, it's Florida. That's the thing. Florida's been playing, coach, down a couple of guys all year long, but they just don't seem to be affected. I was wondering, is that just really good coaching and good fundamentals?
Now, what was the question? I missed it.
I was just asking. I was like, Florida seems to be running full tilt. Is that just really good coaching and fundamentals? Because it seems like they do all the things that no one wants to do anymore: play defense, rebound, all that stuff. Is that why you think that they're
Well, I think there's several teams that do that, and it is good coaching. I mean, any team that you see is fundamentally sound. That's teaching and that's coaching. The key to it is get a team that looks fundamentally sound and has really good players, and that makes a huge difference. And Florida's got that, Auburn's got that, Alabama's got it. A&M to a degree has it. I'm a fan of Missouri's team. I think they're the surprise team in the league, and I think that guy's a leading candidate for Coach of the Year. But Florida's well coached, on both ends of the floor. They run good offense. They're certainly well schooled defensively, and I think the difference in Auburn and Alabama, what I saw the other night, is Auburn's well schooled on the defensive end as well, and I think defense travels. I think defense and rebounding without fouling can win championships, and certainly Auburn and Florida, I think, are both headed in that direction.
Oakley, you're one of the deals we talked about, your top 5 players in the SEC, and then I want to see what Coach says about those top 5, because it's an impressive list.
So I had Janai Broom, 1, Walter Clayton Jr., Trey Johnson, Mark Sears, then Zakai Ziegler.
I like it, Coach.
Wow, you're guard heavy right there, aren't you? You're a little guard heavy.
Guards win in March.
I would have to. I can't off the top of my head. I can't. I don't know if I could. I don't know about Mark Sears. I think he gets a lot of play, and sometimes I think he hurts Alabama with how much he wants to dribble the ball and dominate the ball. I would have to look at that, but you're guard heavy there. I think there are real good guards in this league, and I think they're real good young guards, freshman guards. You got Johnson in there, which I really like him. But I'd have to look back at some teams and see if I could throw somebody around the basket in there to do that. But that's a good group. I'm not as high on Sears or Ziegler as some people, but I think they're really good players. But I like a guy who can play better without the ball, and Sears hadn't yet to prove to me that he can. But I like your group. Off the top of my head, I'd have to look into that a little bit farther. But I like those guys. There's probably about 8 guys in there who can make that top 5 list. You got your 5, and that's all debatable. I think it's good to talk about. But I agree with about 3 or 4 of those. I'd have to debate you on one, but I don't have anything in mind that can counter you right now. So it's early for the old coach. 8 o'clock games are awful. These 8 o'clock games.
Yeah.
I got home last night after we wrapped up the radio thing. I got home about 11 or 11:30 last night. I mean, and then we played a game in Georgia where it started at 9 o'clock
Eastern. Yeah.
That's not even fair to Georgia playing at home at that time for fans.
Yeah.
They don't all come from Athens. They drive from Atlanta over there to see a game too. So I wish the SEC would do something about a 9 o'clock start in an Eastern time zone.
Well, it's like the football games. If you live down on the Gulf Coast and you've got to go to Tuscaloosa or Auburn or those schools, you're getting back. If it's an 8 o'clock game, you're getting back to Mobile. My friends tell me this 5 or 6 o'clock Sunday morning. Throw in 3 or 4 kids into that, soccer games on a Sunday, going to mass. It makes for a fun day, Coach.
Yeah, our school night. I mean, we
God.
played last night at 8 o'clock on a
Yeah.
school night. I mean, I think that hurts your crowd, but money rules, TV rules, and they succumb to that because they need it to, certainly from a fan standpoint, it's not ideal.
Oakley, looking at it from your perspective, you watched Auburn go on the road and beat Alabama. The week before, you were at the Florida Auburn game. Those 3 teams right there, what jumps out at you about one or all of them?
I mean, it comes down to guard play. They all have elite guard play. I think with the reason Auburn and Florida is better is because, like he mentioned, they have it on the defensive end. So they can win a game in multiple different styles. Alabama, if they're not shooting so well, they can't win the game, but it's being able to win the game in multiple different ways.
Coach?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Alabama is more programmed to play one way, and when you're tough enough and good enough to slow them down a little bit, I think to get them in the half court, I think you have a better chance. That's why I like the Auburn team. I like the Florida team because they can play fast and they can play slow. Clayton, I agree with you. I think he's one of the most underrated guards in the country. He doesn't get to play as some of these others do because he can score it when he needs to, and he can play in a team situation and share the ball when he needs to. That's why I think he's really, really good. But I agree with you. Alabama's more programmed to play up and down and shoot it quick after a 1 pass or 2 passes. Auburn and Florida can do that as well, but they also, when you take away an opportunity to run it, get them in the half court, I think Auburn and Florida are better executing in the half court right now.
I saw something funny on X that Denver Jones, who was charged with guarding Mark Sears up at Coleman Coliseum in the Auburn-Alabama game last Saturday, his new name should be Kmart because he shut down Sears. Of course, Oakley's too young to get that joke.
Wow.
Maybe
Rob. Don't tell that to your friends.
It kind of went over my head.
I didn't come up with that. All right, Walter Clayton Jr., that's a guy I want to ask you about. I love the headband. And Ron Slay, I love the headband. I love the retro because it reminds me of guys, Coach, that you love as a coach. And Frank Duffy probably referred to you half a dozen times on the round table last Friday. He loves you. But Coach, I say it every week. We need you on SEC Network. We need a coach. It's like a judge, and then you've got the attorneys there pleading their cases. But don't you love players diving into the stands for balls? That's what I love. Oakley, Brendan, that shows effort. And you got a team full of guys playing that hard. And then, like Oakley says, you get into March, it's about guard play. But I love to see hustle and effort. All I ask out of every team I support is they win every game and give 110% in everything they do and never, ever allow any negative thoughts to get in their heads. That's all.
That's all you ask. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying that's all I think about.
And don't fall into the stands. And by the way, I don't like when they fall into the stands because I'm the camera guy on the ground. I don't appreciate them stepping on me. Okay.
Yeah.
So
like the lady
perspective.
How about the lady Oakley and everybody in Tuscaloosa when Chad Baker Mazzara fell on her and she got kind of mad. She's become a social media phenom, but I don't know what Chad Baker Mazzara said to her. He may have said Happy Valentine's. I don't know what he said.
I doubt he said that.
Probably had some choice words for her.
Coach, how did you handle? I mean, when a player goes in the stands like that, though, you see an NBA player doing it, making the kind of money they do. That tells you got a team full. You remember a guy named Tony Allen that played for the Grizzlies, Coach? Played at Oklahoma State. He started the grit and grind motto of the Memphis Grizzlies. I'll take a team full of guys like that 8 days a week.
Well, effort, you can't control if the ball goes in or not. Sometimes shooting comes and goes, but you can control the effort you give, and certainly that illustrates diving on the floor or diving in the stands to save a ball. All those things go back to effort, and players can control the effort they give every night. That's why I'm a big believer that defense and rebounding travels, because that's about effort and doing it every night. You control that as a player. You can't control the shooting if the ball goes in, but certainly you can control the effort. And I think teams that give effort and defend night in, night out are the teams that, really play well. The A&M teams, they're not a scoring juggernaut, but they certainly defend and rebound. That's why I think that's where they are. But they ran into a buzzsaw last night at Mississippi State because Chris Jans, I hadn't seen that game, but I bet you it was a total dogfight and a backroom brawl watching those two teams play. And that's the kind of basketball I like to see. Two tough teams guarding each other and defending, making some baskets along the way. And we go back to the headband thing. I'm so old school. I wouldn't let players wear headbands. Ron Slade wouldn't have liked me because I told him to take the headband off. I thought it was a self-identifying sort of thing, and I thought basketball was such a team game that you shouldn't do anything individually that brings attention to yourself within the team. So Slayer and I would have probably butted heads on the headband situation.
I just think about watching basketball growing up. The guys played; they loved the game. Hell, Oakley, Coach and I, and Brendan too, are old enough to remember when you got the football cards, with the gum in there. They would have on there John Brady, linebacker, Washington Redskins. In the offseason, John is a bank president at First National Bank of Bug Tussle. Remember, they had to go get a job.
I am not that old. No, I am not that old. No, I did not grow up. I grew up with Johnny Ball Game Elway scoring touchdowns and throwing it so hard it made a cross in their chest, and he made millions of dollars. So,
but they didn't used to have a job. They used to have
like
a
1952.
Job. No, back in the 70s. And we had the referee who passed away December 12th on this show half a dozen times, Jim Tunney. They called him the dean of NFL referees. He told a story, and it was so cool. He said, I remember one time being on the sidelines before a Packers game, and Coach Vince Lombardi, what a man. He goes, he's over there talking with one of his players, and the guy wanted a $7,000 a year contract. And Lombardi looked at him and said, we're not going a penny above 6,500. You're already the highest paid tight end in the league. So he wanted $7,000 a year. So all things are relative, man.
Yeah, because college players are getting paid now.
Times have changed.
Times have changed.
It is. Oakley, you watch all these games. Brendan's going to put the scores up from the games last night. Anything popping out at you? Any trends on? You look at social media. My dad right now is. I work with him every day. I'm like, don't you remember the tutorial yesterday? But Instagram, X, Facebook, Twitter.
That's so funny, Rob. I feel the same way about you when I talk to you. It's like you're just like your dad, the chip off the old block, I think.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
He's watching right now.
I bet you he probably knows more about it than you do. I'm going to guess. Yeah. He's got skills.
I can't even say anything to him now after that. So I'm toast. But Oakley, this basketball season, the SEC compared to last year, and then I'm going to ask Coach, is it way better, or are we going to have what happened? Are you worried about what happened last year? Teams going out early, and Alabama made it to the Final Four and Tennessee to the Elite Eight, but the rest of them, it didn't happen.
No, I think top to bottom this year, it's just way better. And all these teams should be built for March. Last year, there's probably 3-4 elite teams. There's probably 7 or 8 elite teams this year. I don't think there's any way what happened last year will happen again.
Yeah. Coach?
I agree with that. It depends on matchups and the draw. I think some teams around the country are a little underrated. They don't get enough credit. I like the Wisconsin team. I followed them. I saw them play early in the year when we were at Greenbrier, and I really liked them. And they're starting to play really well now. And so there are a couple other teams like that. But, this is the deepest the SEC's ever been. I don't know how good college basketball is around the country in terms of being able maybe to compete. I don't know if there's some bad teams out there or some teams that aren't as good as everybody advertises them to be, but we'll see when the NCAA tournament starts. I'm still wondering how many teams the SEC will get in. I just don't see a 6-12 team in the SEC getting in the NCAA tournament. I don't see that. I think there are 10 teams now that I like, but you talk about Texas, Arkansas, and Georgia, and Oklahoma. They're 3-10. They've lost 5 in a row. I mean, I don't get that a bubble team. They got crushed last night, and then we beat them up there. Oklahoma's lost 4 games of their last 5 by 20 points. I mean, I don't think that's an NCAA worthy team, regardless of what league they're playing in. So I think 10 teams. I got the cutoff at Vandy at 5-7, and Texas, Arkansas's 4-8. They need to beat somebody down the stretch to have a chance. Georgia's 4-9. Oklahoma's 3-10. And if you're talking Oklahoma, then why can't LSU be in at 3-10? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. I think some of that's overblown, but we'll see. I think that the last 3 weeks of the season is going to be really important for, Vandy, Texas, Arkansas, and Georgia to really do something significant to get into that tournament situation.
Oakley, he's talking, he sees 10. What was your number that you think are worthy? Because I'm with him, just like when you said last year, the term lottery pick is thrown around very liberally. And you said a lottery pick doesn't put up 3 or 4 points in a night. It's 20-12 night in and night out. And as you said, you've coached a few. I remember Stromile Swift when he came to the Grizzlies, man. That was a big deal. Glenn Big Baby Davis, you've coached some lottery picks. Oakley, kind of expand on that. I know class is calling, but before you go, expand on that.
It's about the teams getting in.
Yeah.
I think he's right on about 10. I think it cuts off at probably Texas right now, so 10 or 11. But I think I really am interested to see Vanderbilt. I want them to get in because I think they're a tournament team in any other conference. I mean, they're a scrappy group. They're a little undersized, but
yeah. And Coach, like you look around this league, and you mentioned Porter Moser. He got Loyola and Chicago to the Final Four, and he's in the SEC, right. And it's like, it's a sausage grinder. Then one story too, Coach, big one that Brendan brought up. We try to be a sanctuary show and not talk about the portal and NIL. Instead, we talk about the players and the games. But a big financial commitment's been made to basketball at LSU. How excited is Matt McMahon and his staff of having the resources to bring them in? Because if you've ever been to Baton Rouge, you want to go back.
Yeah, that was that release came from a guy that really doesn't represent the athletic department. That's just something that Shea Dixon is a guy who does a recruiting situation and said he's talked to people. That wasn't signed off by Scott Woodward, our AD. But they're not going to make a change in basketball here. And I was hoping that the athletic department would come out and say something, but their response is they don't comment on coaches during the season. But certainly, if you're not going to let Matt McMahon go and bring him back, I think a statement like that does help, because if you continue to let innuendo and rumor and speculation, it's a negative connotation that you put on the program, the coaches, and the present players. And don't be fooled that you don't think opponents will use that against us, that the program is unstable. So, and they're going to give LSU more money. I think even in the revenue sharing situation, LSU is going to have $20 million or $22 million, whatever the percentage is, to spread out amongst players with revenue sharing. Football will get 13 million, basketball will get 4.2, and then the rest of the teams will be decided by the athletic director, is what I hear. So that will help. But if you keep the collective on the side of that to add more money to the revenue sharing, LSU still going to be behind a little bit because everybody else's collective is ahead of ours except for 3 other teams in the league. So what I wish would happen is it would be public record on who pays who what, how much money they really distribute, how much their collective actually is, because everybody hears things, and somebody told me this, or I hear this from my buddy at Arkansas. I wish it was public record so everybody could see the distribution.
Well, it's
of
like
funds.
when an analyst is on CNBC, full disclosure, do you own shares in the company you're talking about? Oakley, I know you got to go to class. Let people know how they can follow you. And next week's homework assignment is the best big men in the conference that you can come up with your top 5, because I think Coach is right. Somebody that plays, if there is a true center, a true forward. But love having you on here. This is great stuff.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I can be followed on Instagram at Oakley.McFerrin, and the same thing for Twitter, or X, I guess now. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Hey, always love it, man. Take care. Have a great week. Coach, yeah, what I was just saying, I think Matt McMahon's a really good coach. I mean, he came from Murray State, and I just remember when he took over, he didn't have anybody. He had to completely start over. So making a commitment like that, and if the House settlement goes through, that's $21 million coming in. I think a trend going forward, I think people are going to start sticking with coaches longer. How long did it take you to build your first college coaching job? Build to the point where, wow, we've really got this thing going. It doesn't happen in year 1 or 2, does it?
Well, I think every situation's different. It depends on who you take over for and what shape the program is in. We went to Sanford back in the day, and they'd won 6 games in 3 years or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was terrible, and it took us a couple of years to get it right and win some games and establish a team that people want to come see play. At LSU, we took over a situation here. They'd had 4 straight losing seasons. We went on probation. They took 3 scholarships from us 3 straight years in a row for 9 scholarships. We could only visit 6 players a year for 3 years. It was an incredible situation. It almost destroyed the program. People don't really understand what we took over here when we took the LSU job. But it's different in the recruiting now. We weren't paying guys $500,000 and having a collection of $4 or $5 million to go get players. Recruiting is different now. And you look at the SEC. Last year the coach at South Carolina, he was SEC Coach of the Year. They're 0-13 now. He's had some players check out and go somewhere else. Missouri last year didn't win a game, went 0-18, went in the portal and hit on about 6 or 7 guys, and now that guy's going to be Coach of the Year. So you couldn't do that years ago. You had to recruit and build a program and retain players and that sort of thing. I remember 20 years ago, they chastised coaches for running players off. NCAA made a big deal about that. Like, we were running players off. You can't do that. Well, now a player leaves at semester and goes somewhere else. Nobody cares. So the whole dynamic of the recruiting and building a program is changed. I don't know if you build a program now, you sustain a program with the transfer portal and the NIL situation. I think you just sustain it as best you can. Your best player may leave and go somewhere else for more money. So it's a dynamic that head coaches have to deal with. Totally different than what we had to do.
And Coach, ago. I know you've got to get going. You got a big day ahead of you, and I want you to get some rest. You were up late, but I will say this: you look at the ACC. Think about this. In the last few years, Coach K, Roy Williams, Jim Larinaga leaves Miami. I love Jim. I don't know him, but he's a guard-heavy coach. You talk about a guy. He just had enough. Tony Bennett, I've had enough. Jim Boeheim, after close to 50 years, leaves. That's a lot of change, but I think you got to stick with your coaches longer. You're either a long-term investor or you're a short-term trader, a day trader. Most day traders lose their ass. And I know this 34 years in the financial markets. People, they close out positions when they go to the bathroom, because they're so nervous. You got to stick with something. Before Dudley Dawson and Vince Ferrara come on, tell us just what your best advice would be if you were on a selection committee bringing in a college basketball coach in today's environment.
Well, I'd have to see where he's coached and the programs that he has taken over and the shape they were in and the situation. You know, a lot of coaches had done a great job, but they took over difficult programs. Every job I had, the program was in the tank, and we had to resurrect it. Some take over better programs in better shape, and I think what I like to look at is where coaches have been. If they've been in difficult situations where the commitment wasn't there for basketball as it should be, and they've won games and they've done it with not much, I think when you give them the resources that they need, they can really make for a big program. And I would look at their track record and their background and where they've come from and what they've done with what they've been given. And I think that's an approach I would take if I was on a selection committee to hire a coach.
And like I heard said, when you're talking to these kids today, you know, you've been 19 and you've been whatever age you are now. They've only been 19. They need to listen to you. I think that's great advice, man. Well, Coach, cannot thank you enough for taking time to come on here with us and share with us. And one day you're going to be on SEC Network and you'll be the judge and they'll plead their cases to you. You and Ron Slay get at it about that headband. I want to see this.
I'd take his headband and put it in my pocket. He wouldn't know what to say.
Well, Coach, man, we'll do it again next week. Thank you so much. Get some rest and relaxation.
All right.
Take care. Brendan, all right. I think we're seeing more and more. I go look at these coaches in this league. Todd Golden in year 3, the success he's having. Wow, watch out. Hey, let's say something about Winter Timber Outdoors, located in Athens, Alabama. One of our sponsors we're proud to have. They're growing all over the Southeast in the footprint that's the Southeastern Conference. They're building a store in Auburn, and they're going to look at a location. They're trying to find one in Fayetteville and Athens, Georgia. Something soon will be announced about the Memphis market, which is a huge hunting market. They've got all the guns, handguns, shotguns, rifles, all the shooting sports. They've got you covered from A to Z. Woodhaven Custom Calls, St. Nick's Knives. If you collect the knives, St. Nick's Knives are the best. You got to find them. Turkey Calls. Turkey season is cranking up, folks, believe it or not, next month. I'm up here in Memphis. We got 4 or 5 inches of snow, wind chills, sub-zero. All your gear you need to be outdoors. The outdoor life is the best life. Get everything you need at Winter Timber Outdoors. Ammunition, shoes, reloading, everything. They've got you covered with a staff that knows what they're doing. Winter Timber Outdoors. Take a picture of that QR code. Buy one, get one free on the Rete Masimara GPS. Look, Brendan, I love what Coach just said. I do think it's crazy to be flipping coaches, but one thing I do love is I love snow. And look up there at Old Main in Fayetteville, Arkansas. God, that's gorgeous, man. Dudley, you know, as cold as it is outside, you're not really dressed all that warm. I mean, no wind blowing or anything like that, but welcome to the conversation. How much snow did you get up there in the northwest corner in the Boston Mountains?
At the house here, it appears 7 to 8 inches according to the weather guys. So I know that the new little puppy goes, if you put him in the snow, he'll sink down. So there's a lot.
I love it. Brendan, for many years, lived out in Colorado, and he's a winter survival expert.
Walked to school backwards with no shoes on, actually, which was interesting. Part of my lore, you know.
No, but you were a winter survival outdoor expert or qualified.
Well, we don't break it out by season. We just say survivalist.
I got you.
Yeah. I got my wolfer certification, and I taught kids how to not die in like Costa Rican rainforests. That's all.
Well, it's cold, man, and I'm telling you, Dudley, tonight, Razorbacks playing in Auburn. I think that's going to be a very difficult game for Auburn, and I say it because there's still way too much talk about that win over Alabama. You got to get over that within 24 hours. You better be focused on Arkansas. Razorbacks in first year under John Calipari. Give us your report card up to this point, and can we get a pronunciation on the big 7'2" guy that Pat Bradley, the shooter, talks about, because he can shoot 3-pointers. Where is he from? He's not from Arkansas, is he?
No. Matt is, but not little
I
Z
know.
is from Arkansas, but Big Z, and I'm not even going to begin to try to pronounce his name. I just don't do that. If I can't pronounce it, I just leave it alone. Big Z seems good enough to me. He likes
what
that.
Up, G?
Obviously, he's been playing well for him, and he'll have to play well tonight to be able to. For them to have a chance, I don't expect them to go in there and win. It's been an inconsistent season. There have been times that they've looked really good. I mean, the 2-game road setting at Kentucky and Texas proves that they can go and win in tough environments. But Auburn's just really, really good, and it would be a shocker if Arkansas were to come out of there with a win. Of course, if they were, then then they jump to the top of the last 4 or 5 down there that are trying to get in the tournament at the bottom of the league.
Well, and I sit here and I think about the situation, and Vince Ferrara is going to try to join us. They were getting snow, and I know he does a morning show, 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern in Knoxville. Then he comes on here with us. So, Brendan, hopefully Vince will be able to get in. I look at John Calipari. He's won everywhere he's been. I think he stayed 15 years at Kentucky. That's too long. But look at his record at Kentucky. He wins. He's one of the winningest coaches, along with Rick Barnes. They're the top 2 winningest coaches in America. What are you hearing about help on the way via the transfer portal or high school recruiting to help this Arkansas team? Because looking ahead, he's going to be there a while.
Well, he's got 2 of the best 10 high school players signed in the November period that are coming in, both guards. And I suspect that we'll see them take the place of Boogie Flan, who obviously has been hurt and not played these last few games and is out for the season. And I suspect will be drafted in the late first, early second round. And he'll probably go ahead and go, because I think that's been the plan all along. But they'll have those 2 guards coming in. Obviously, Big Z could be drafted, down the line. But I don't think I think he's just a sophomore right now. And so I think they're going to load up on talent again. The mixture is going to be the key. I think, as I've said all along, I think this mixture didn't have enough shooters, not enough Chiefs, and too many Indians. Too many Chiefs, not enough Indians. And I think that they'll have the opportunity certainly to be good. And you're going to go back and look at this season. You're going to see about 3 losses that they should have been wins for them that have determined the season. Now they still got a chance as they go down the stretch here, but they're always on the bubble, out, one of the last teams out. That's not something you want to be called, one of the last teams out. You're going to sit back and you're going to look all year at a few games and play, including a couple at home they should have won.
Yeah. Don't they call that NIT, not in the tournament?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, and as a coach, you want those extra practice days. As a player, you get to play more games. Compare Eric Musselman. He had those 2 Elite 8 teams. They beat number 1 overall seed Gonzaga on that Thursday night thriller. Compare what he was doing with what Cal is doing from your perspective, because I know you're a True Grit journalist and you are an Arkansas grad, in the interest of full disclosure, but I've gotten to know you these last 3 years. You just call it down the line, which is you're like a legitimate judge on the bench.
I really don't give a flip.
You don't.
I tell you what, Musselman was a bundle of energy, great for the program in terms of social media, needed it, when he came in. The thing that he did, he wasn't great during the conference season. I mean, they didn't win any conference titles. They weren't really pushing at the very top, but he got into the NCAA tournament and they won. And they won at a high clip. Obviously made a couple of trips. Beat Kansas. Was playing against UConn and with the opportunity to advance. So that I think was a lasting memory from him. The energy, the social media, and getting deep into the tournament. Now this particular coach has been deep in the tournament, has lost early in tournaments. He's just trying to get in right now. If they get in, I'm sure that they'll be able to make some headway. But right now, it's hard for me to say yes, they're definitely going to be in there because that schedule's just a killer coming down the stretch. Missouri 0-18 last year will be here Saturday, and they're really good this year. I mean, it's just you can't find wins now here late like you could have early.
Yeah, the Missouri and the South Carolina stories say so much about this conference that last year Lamont Paris was the SEC Coach of the Year, I believe, and Dennis Gates goes 0-19. Wow, love that background, Dudley.
Yeah, and Oklahoma. Oklahoma's Porter Mosier was thought to be one of the great coaches in the game. Now they're about to run him out of Norman.
Yeah, I mean, and he took a team to the Final Four with far less resources, but he had a team of guys probably that had played together 3 or 4 years. Let's say hello to our good friend Vince Ferrara, 99.1 The Sports Animal up in Knoxville. Vince, you're burning up. I love the jacket, man. Is that the Sports Animal official jacket?
It is. It's a little bit older logo, but yeah, we get to. They're nice enough to let us order out of a catalog a couple times a year with station logo on it, and so this one is kind of lasted, and it's the heaviest and the warmest. So I went with it this morning in the snow.
What's the weather like right now? Dudley said they got 7 or 8 inches up in Fayetteville. What you got in Knoxville this morning, or is it just still not there yet? Because Memphis, we got 4 or 5 where I am, but and it's just now windy and sub-zero wind chills.
Yeah, nothing like that. 32 overnight or early morning snow just before we're headed to work for the morning show. Different amounts. I'd say maybe an inch, all clear and everything. So overnight, everything will refreeze. That's when it'll get tough. But so far, nothing.
Well, Vince, let's turn it into basketball right now. Tennessee, we had Oakley, McFerrin, the intern, and Coach John Brady on in the first half of the show. Oakley in his top 5 had Zakai Ziegler in there. I think this kid, hour and a half each way to school on a train up in the Bronx, going to a Catholic school up there. Tough kid, point guard. I got him in my top 5 players. He's one of my favorite guys in the SEC. Let's talk about Tennessee. They hang around, man. They are in that top 10, securely in the top 10, but they'd like to keep the score in the 50s or 60s. How do you see this season, up to this point, and looking ahead, how do you think it'll play out as the games, including the matchup? Are they playing tonight? I just lost my schedule here. Yeah, Vince.
Yeah, Texas A&M on Saturday. This is their open midweek.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
So they'll have A&M on Saturday, and A&M will be smarting off of their loss to Mississippi State last.
Yeah, that was rough. Vince is now frozen. We have the Yeti. It's like on the side of Mount Everest. Vince, you there? Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm back. Yeah,
okay.
the anytime it snows or it's cold, internet not as strong here. They're not used to dealing.
Yeah, we're in that same boat, Vince. And come back in.
Yeah. So, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you go ahead.
I'll step in. I thought the Vanderbilt win was really big for them. Obviously, the way it started out, it looked like they were going to be in trouble, but came back, got that win, which I think, in terms of the initial seeding, it is going to be big, for them to get a top, or the top seeds. I think that would have been a terrible loss for them.
Well, I do. And Vanderbilt, Vince, wasn't Vanderbilt up 13 at the half?
Yes.
Yeah. And Vince, we'll try
Got
to
your
work
answer.
through. Got the answer. It's a school picture day today. I mean, yeah, we're dealing with it right now on the interweb. And Vince, chime back in. But Dudley, looking around this conference, I was watching Texas A&M at the Hump in Starkville last night. Man, Texas A&M, I think Buzz Williams he's one of my favorite. He might be the best coach in America for getting, as Chuck Oliver always says, 50 pounds out of a 20-pound sack more often than anybody does. They've got money. They got everything that you want at Texas A&M. You remember your days covering the Southwest Conference?
Oh, yeah.
Man, Arkansas basketball with Eddie Sutton, Nolan Richardson. When Nolan Richardson left, it was let's go get the guy who's the hottest run in March Madness, like Stan Heath and Pelfrey and all. I think that's tough to do, but is A&M, is Buzz Williams the best coach you've ever seen out there? I know you cover the Hogs, but you know the league as well, and hopefully Vince can come back in with us. But is A&M capable? They've had some good runs, but they never seem to break through the ceiling. Is that mental, or are they just not going to do it?
I think Buzz does a tremendous job, and I think that was a good analogy you were using about the sack. They muck up the game. I mean, that's, you watched Arkansas last Saturday, and Arkansas might have had as much individual talent, but they were not as tough as Texas A&M. They didn't go to the boards and get the offensive rebounds. Texas A&M doesn't matter missing shots because they know they're going to get most of the offensive rebounds. They've got a really good front line there. Obviously, you've got Wade Taylor, does a tremendous job of just being their leader. And they've got a guy that, to me, is a Pilcher, is able to step off and knock down the threes that they can count on. And that's someone that, would really have been a good player for Arkansas, whether it be Joseph Pinion that was here and now it's having great success at Arkansas State. Arkansas has needed somebody like that this year, and I think would have won several more games if they'd had somebody. But they are just a tremendously tough team. Buzz does a great job out there. It's always been a football school, but it's had great basketball teams, and I am not dismissing them as a Final Four contender for sure this year.
Yeah. Not is like something else pops up there, and Buzz Williams. He's also seems like a genuinely good person. I know he does he does so much stuff off the court, and not that other coaches don't, but and he wears the three-piece suit out of respect to the guy that got him his first coaching job. If he's anything, he's loyal. But on top of that, he's a brilliant basketball coach and a hell of a guy. Vince, looks like we got you back here. Let's talk about Tennessee. They're under Rick Barnes. They're always right there in the fight, which is all you can ask for as a fan when you hire a coach. So talk as much as you can until you freeze.
I think Tennessee has been inconsistent. There's been cold halves, there's been cold periods, but their second halves have been much better than their first halves. They just have this tendency to dig themselves a hole. You were talking about earlier how Tennessee was down 13 to Vanderbilt last game and down 16 late in the first half. Zakai Ziegler was scoreless at the half, and then Rick Barnes challenged the team at the half, and said some things that he admitted that he normally doesn't say to Zakai Ziegler. They have such a great, unique relationship. Rick Barnes doesn't usually need to dig deep to motivate Zakai Ziegler and give him that edge, but he didn't have that edge in the first half for whatever reason, and he wanted to prove Coach Barnes' words wrong when he challenged him at the half, and he did. He on Vanderbilt, 22 points in the second half, took over and penetrating and the high pick and roll. He's so good at getting Vanderbilt's bigs in foul trouble. So that was big, but they've been so much better in the second half than the first. In one way you can say, hey, if you get into trouble in a tournament game, they're never going to give up. They're always going to have the ability to.
Yeah. And the gremlins are out there today. And Vince, keep trying. Dudley,
be able to come back out of.
Okay. Well, and Vince, when I look at Tennessee play, what do you have right now? 8 healthy scholarship players on this team?
9.
Is that about right?
Yeah, 9. They play really 8 for the most part. Their 9th guy, Bishop Boswell's a true freshman point guard. He plays a couple minutes a game. So it's an 8-man rotation, basically.
Okay. And I think about that, Dudley, you look at 8 or 9 healthy scholarship players. You can have 13. What do most teams carry? 10 or 11? Is that about the average? Something on that line. I marvel at what some of these teams do. Tennessee a couple of weeks ago with 7 healthy scholarship players beat Florida by 20. By 20. The more we're looking at it, Vince, that Tennessee win by 20 over Florida, that's, Florida arguably is the best team in the country right now. You look around and you think about the selection committee and what they're going to be looking at. That was huge. And then Florida's win on the road at number 1 Auburn, then Auburn's win at Alabama. Here's the reason why I think you've got all these teams ranked so high: Auburn, Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, Texas A&M went down hard last night. What do you think is going to happen with Tennessee the rest of this season?
Well, I think they have 2 road games coming up with Texas A&M and LSU. LSU's playing their best ball, although they'll run into Florida on Saturday, so that may come to a screeching halt. And then they have to deal with A&M, will be smarting off of that big loss to Mississippi State last night. You don't expect Wade Taylor to struggle from the floor and scoring like he did last night for 2 games in a row. They're tough, they're physical. So yeah, 2 tough games, and they still have Alabama left to come. So yeah, I think Tennessee, the biggest thing is they need to try to get into that top 4 spot for a double bye. And right now, A&M is in that spot, and because of their loss last night, they have a 1-game lead. Whereas Tennessee, they're a game back of Texas A&M. If they win that game, they'll be tied with A&M and then have the head-to-head. Should it just come down to those 2 for seeding for the SEC tournament. So definitely they have to finish above 500 in their final 5 games, and maybe even 4-1 to secure that, because you're dealing with multiple teams. Missouri is up there as well. So I think the top 3 we know. It's just a matter of who gets that 4th spot for the SEC tournament. And as tough as it is, you guys know, as difficult as it is to deal with the SEC, the strength this year during the regular season, good luck having to beat these great teams night after night. If you're going to make a deep run, that's what you would have to do in Nashville. If you don't get that double bye. Even with that, you have to do it 3 times, but to try to do it 4 or 5, yeah, that's not a recipe for a deep run into the weekend.
What's different, Vince, about this Tennessee team at this point of the season compared to the same time last year? I know Dalton Connect's not there, but
here's the thing: is that there was a lot of talk last year how they were so reliant on Dalton Connect, they didn't have enough guys contributing offensively. This year it's a little bit more spread out, even though Chad Lanier's numbers are very good, and he's kind of finding his way slowly but surely in SEC play and learning how to up his intensity. saw a stat from John Rothstein, one of the national writers of college basketball. Tennessee is 16-1 in games that Chaz Lanier scores 16 points or more, 4-5 when he doesn't. That's pretty reliant on the scoring of your leading scorer in Chaz Lanier. That also says that they're not getting enough from the other guys. So I think that's the difference. Is Dalton Connect was a clear closer for them and could put him on his back. Chaz Lanier has not played with the confidence and intensity and urgency of just taking over a game. He can get hot, and Rick Barnes will go to him.
Yeah.
But he's not one that everyone is going to break down their defense to try to get to. They'll game plan for him, but he hasn't established himself as the closer that Connect was. Different kinds of players, so they need him to be really good. But they need, even though they're not deep, they need some of their other guys, Milicic and Gainey off the bench. They need to go in the post more. They need more from everybody else if they're going to make a deep run. Whereas last year they were much more reliant on Connect and Ziegler. Needs to be more of a team effort this year.
You know, I just wonder, looking, how much better would Tennessee be with Adu, who's over at Arkansas? Because you always have to wonder that question, but you know far better than I.
Yeah, they're better without him, and it's not to take away from what he did at Tennessee, because they did the best with him, and I think Rick Barnes got more out of him than John Calipari is getting out of him. I think Dudley would probably tell you that if you look at the way they're playing. I don't think Adu is the factor that he was at Tennessee. That being said, Tennessee has better rim protection, better rebounding, better defense on the perimeter that allows them to be able to switch. Felix Okpara, he can go out and has defended point guards on switches because of his length, his athleticism, and he's an elite shot blocker. He also is slowly improving his post game. Rick Barnes wants to get him the ball in Cade Phillips when he's in the game, get it in the post more, to have that be another threat, which will open things up for 3-point shooters. Felix Okpara is more diverse and mobile than Jonas Adu was, and they never have to question his motor, Felix Okpara. So I think they've upgraded him, and then Phillips taking that next step as a very super athletic backup post player. And the dunks that they get with Ziegler, especially, and sometimes the bigs feeding Okpara and Cade Phillips, they're terrific. They didn't really have that. Adu just wasn't as bouncy as those two guys are. So that threat at the rim gives them another element of the offense that they did not have with Adu. So no, they transfer portal. The better argument might be Tobe Awaka, who's at Arizona. And I think he's playing pretty well. He's a different kind of player. He can give you rebounding and toughness, things like that, in physicality. But no, I think Tennessee's swap in the bigs has actually been an upgrade this year.
Yeah, and Vince, you look at college basketball nowadays, most teams probably carrying 10 scholarship players they can go with. Tennessee, 9 healthy. I go back to two things. It says a lot about the duality of this Tennessee team. You get swept by Kentucky, and they're okay. I mean, but it's Mark Pope's first year. But they're Kentucky. They're always, it's like the yet unseen 60-year-old photos of Marilyn Monroe in a bikini at the beach that come out. I mean, but then you split Florida. You lost by 30 in Gainesville, but you beat them by 20 at home. And I go back to Florida. You're not going to see many teams like them with the size. Now Micah Handgleiten has come back. That's an all-in. Very similar to Auburn. Of course, Todd, Golden was director of basketball operations for Pearl. You look at Rick Barnes. these guys build cultures wherever they are. That's what, when you play a team that's all in on a culture, it's tough. But Tennessee's proven they can take on a team with the big guys with 7 scholarship healthy players. I mean, it's like if Tennessee's on, they're going to try to keep that game and beat you 55-53. Is that what Rick Barnes would like to do with this team? Because they play defense like nobody else.
And a couple of things on that, Rob. And I think they're good in those kind of games. Rick Barnes has said that he wants them to get out and run more. And I think that helps them when they can get out in transition, because man, you're in a grind in the offensive half court time after time after time. Man, that makes it difficult, and that wears you down at the end of games. So getting easy baskets when you can, they're a little more opportunistic at that. Turning teams over helps you get on transition too. So, I think some of the defensive numbers as well, I think some of those are padded by their pre-conference as well. I'm not saying Tennessee is not a great defensive team. They are. But I think some of those numbers being number one in different categories, I think some of that is still early conference or pre-conference. They're in the SEC. They've had some breakdowns, some maybe tougher non-Tennessee type of defensive efforts. So certain teams have given them trouble. Here's a quick stat on Kentucky. You mentioned Kentucky sweeping Tennessee. It's just odd. If you watch Kentucky night after night, game after game, you don't see the way they played against Tennessee. I mean, those have been outliers for them. Do you know? Here's your stat.
Correct.
Since January 14th, Kentucky has only beaten Tennessee twice and winless South Carolina. That's it since January 14th, more than a month. I mean,
wow.
That's just they've been bad / inconsistent in every other game, but they were at their best against Tennessee in both of those games. Sometimes that happens with a specific matchup or team, but man, Tennessee's, they bounced back against Florida. You mentioned that being shorthanded, so that's not a matchup thing necessarily. That's more motivation and shots. But Tennessee is going to go, to me, how their offense takes them. If they play right inside out, then they'll be good, and then they'll have a chance for a deep run. But honestly, the way I describe this Tennessee team right now is they are absolutely Final Four caliber when they're playing really well. When they're not, they are a candidate to be bounced in the second round of the tournament, regardless of how your bracket looks. That's kind of the wide range of this Tennessee team this year.
Interesting stuff. Very revealing. 2 things come to mind. You split with Florida, number 2 in the country right now. You go on the road, you play at Auburn, and you lose 55-53. Say Tennessee plays their best against the best teams. Now, January 7th, not so much. That was Florida. It wasn't that Tennessee had an off night. That was more about the Gators. But, wow, that stat about Chaz Lanier, 16-1, 4-5 or 5-4 when he doesn't score 16. Yep. And then Kentucky, you're right. They haven't done anything. And then look at South Carolina. We referenced this earlier in the broadcast. They lost 66-63 at home to then number 2 Auburn. Then you look at that loss at Vanderbilt. Tennessee will play Alabama
at home.
Okay, so that's going to be – Tennessee will have played 1, 2, and 3 in the country. Now, if Tennessee beats Alabama, right now the number 3 or 4 team in the country, Duke was in there, or number 4 or whatever. Think about that. You'd have split with number 2, lost by 2 at number 1 Auburn, and if you beat Alabama at home, wow, you better hope you get matched up against the best teams in the country. And here come the Yetis back with us, Dudley. But, Vince, those are some incredible stats that you put out. Did you put that out on your show this morning?
We talked about it on the show this morning. We had Burt Bertelkamp, who the analyst for basketball.
Yes, remember him.
He joined us, so I brought that up with him. And he said it's true. They're dependent on him, but he also mentioned Jordan Gainey too, and needing his scoring off the bench. He actually gets more minutes than a couple of starters. That's how much he impacts them, and he makes them better offensively. Rick Barnes sometimes has to go to more of an offensive lineup than a defensive lineup when teams are backing off of Jemai Mashak and he's not confidently taking his open shots. So this team, has some quirks and inconsistencies to it. There's no doubt.
Great stuff. The Yeti is back. Chrome Dawson. Chrome, how are you, man? Hey, trust me, I went to Chrome recently. Yeah, get the volume. But Dudley, you heard this is some incredible basketball minutia that Vince just put out there. And that's what I love about y'all's knowledge, your ability to take all this minutia, extrapolate all this data, and put it in the vernacular. That is, that goes back to word wealth when Brother Stephen Schonhoff at Christian Brothers High School said the Pope, St. John Paul II now, could speak in like 7 or 8 different languages. And that's powerful stuff. Dudley, you look at this league, how many close games there are. Can you remember this many battles, full 40s, plus we're not seeing much overtime, are we? I bet that's a stat.
More teams, 16 now, but there does seem to be, a really good tight game every night between two teams that maybe you didn't expect at the start of the season. Even South Carolina with their, I guess it's unwinning record, has played a few teams close and had them right there at the end, hadn't been able to get over the hump. There's no easy games in this league. And it's just, as we keep saying, it's not a football league anymore. It's a basketball league with football, maybe 1A.
Yeah. I mean, have y'all noticed Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights? Now my wife might want to watch reruns of Maude or something. No, I'm kidding. But you can't not watch. And there's Saturdays. Saturdays are getting like football Saturdays. You can't get enough of this SEC basketball. Guys, before we go, I want to start with Vince and then to Dudley, and y'all let people know how they can follow you, and we'll wrap it up. What are some stories, or is a story going on at Tennessee that you're covering that maybe the rest of the world doesn't know about but needs to be aware of?
Well, one thing, I actually had some football news from yesterday, a couple of things on the
football.
Yeah, exactly. That terrible sport in the Southeastern Conference, allegedly.
That's right.
So Mike Eckler, special teams coordinator and outside linebackers coach, left to go back to his home state in Nebraska. So there was an opening on the staff, and they filled it with a couple of quality control assistants, one of which will be an on-the-field Chop Harbin, who was one of the highest paid off-the-field coaches in the league. And he's going to coach the outside linebackers. And then the top assistant under Mike Eckler, Evan Crabtree, is going to be an off-the-field assistant running special teams. They brought in John Bonamego, who worked as 6 different stints in the NFL, former head coach of Central Michigan, probably played Arkansas when he was there, and Dudley saw those games. But Bonamego is a very experienced coach. He's going to be off the field as well. So those 3 kind of combining on the Eckler spots, and then they extended the contracts of Willie Martinez, secondary coach, and their strength and conditioning coach, Kurt Schmidt. So the staff is back to being complete under Josh Heupel. So spring practice will start. Do have a date now. March 7th is when spring football practice will start. And then we'll have baseball, who's one of the best teams in the country, basketball, spring practice, all at the same time. That's where you get the head exploding emoji that's appropriate.
Yes, and that's March 5th is Ash Wednesday, so March 6th you start practice. So
yeah,
lot going on. That's also, by the way, when the Waffle Shop opens, the Lenten lunches at Calvary Episcopal Church at 2nd and Adams in downtown Memphis, folks. A big deal. And let me say about Landers Ford, folks, they're open today. LandersFordMemphis.com. They're already Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Not okay. That's a day they give off as SAG's big and tall store in West Memphis, 100 years in business, used to say, the day means more than the dollar. So Landers Ford, huge selection. Poplar and Houston Levy out in Collierville, LandersFordMemphis.com. Service department, they'll pick you up, provide round-trip transportation. President's Day, they had a lot of big specials off MSRP, cars, trucks, and SUVs. Get out there and ask for Brad Bellamy, the general manager. And again, Kenny Myers is out there at Landers now. Y'all all know him. Purple Wave, purple and gold. Big Kenny is there, 41 years in the business. Proud to have them as a sponsor. And they're right down the street from our good friends at Hewlett and Dunn. They got all your gear right now, folks, 50% off sale. Filson, Barber, Pendleton, Schaefer, STS, over 7,000 pairs of men's and women's boots in there, work boots. These Danner boots that I've got on right now, made out in Portland, Oregon. They've got every boot Danner has. These trail shoes, they got it all covered. Raven, Charles, Laura, Squidward, Lydia, J.M. Huffman, they got it all covered for you out there. And you know what? Let me say this, Vince, great stuff. Cannot thank you enough for your patience and your diligence today because we got some crazy weather. Our producer, Brendan Martin, is extraordinary what he does behind the scenes. If you don't know, he's got 7 monitors going in there, but thank you so much, Vince. The Sports Animal, Monday through Friday, awesome stuff. And Dudley, tell us a story that's going on up in Fayetteville that maybe people aren't talking about, but you're on it and they can read about it at hogville.net that the whole world needs to be aware of. It could even be about that other sport.
Going to be writing about it later this afternoon. The women's softball team is 10-0, has just been bashing people. And the best player on campus right now is Bree Ellis, the first baseman for the Arkansas softball team. Had 15 RBIs in 5 games last week, has 24 for the season in 10 games, has 7 home runs. I don't know why they pitched her, but they continue to do it, and she continues to hit them out. And she also just happens to be the best quote on campus, so I hope she has a tremendous year and just keeps talking smack like she does.
Hey, you got to love that stuff. And I
don't like boring. I don't like boring, and she ain't boring.
Yeah, you cannot have boring, man. All right, well, look, guys, awesome show today. Dudley and Vince, the dynamic duo, getting y'all on together. Love that jacket, Vince. That is
Appreciate
the Sports Animal up in Knoxville. Guys, we'll wrap it up. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Think about that. It's cold today. Help people whenever way you can, especially watch out for your pets. On a day like today, it is cold. Make sure that they are warm and keep the fire going. Your executive producer extraordinaire, Maximus Aurelius, Martin. Thanks to everybody for watching, your patience, perseverance. Brendan, unbelievable to make this thing happen. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Watch us today, 4 p.m., 5 p.m. Eastern, on the same channel for the Auburn Undercover Show with Ronnie Sanders and Doug Dean and the Buddy Martin Show.